Hello, everybody, and welcome again back to Procrastinator's Pit Stop. We have with you another amazing guest today, Super Julie. Although she was diagnosed with an auditory processing disorder and dyslexia as a teenager, she unknowingly honed leadership skills that propelled her to lead creative teams at top brands like Victoria's Secret, MTV, and Nike. Now, as the founder of Super Purposes, she helps individuals from diverse backgrounds overcome challenges to secure purpose filled careers and the salaries they deserve. And now, with over 17,000 success stories to date. SJ, welcome to the show.
Thank you. It's good to be here.
Oh, it's great to have you here. I'm really excited to dig into some of this with you. But before we dig into it, we do like to have an icebreaker on this show. And the question for you today was, which cartoon character do you resonate the most with, and why?
I'm going to go with Calvin and Hobbes. I've got little kitty cat with me today. But I'm going to go with Calvin and Hobbes. When I was growing up, I loved reading those books. I think I was a little bit older actually when those books came into popularity. And I've always just really enjoyed the imagination of Calvin. Um, the kind of the menacing Calvin, the brat Calvin, and Hobbes as being that, grand observer, the conscience, the other side, the other idea, the parental figure maybe sometimes. And I just really, I think I long for the imagination piece in my life. So yeah, I love this question. What cartoon or comic book character do you resonate with?
I love that one. Mine's a little bit more controversial than that. I love Calvin and Hobbes though. Mine was actually Deadpool.
Okay.
Not because of the not because of the fighting or the violent part of it, but Deadpool at its core, the character, he feels like and he's talking to the narrator all the time, so he's always thinking that he's talking to that fourth wall, and he just really wants to feel like he's has a purpose or has worth, and I can
Um,
really resonate wanting to feel that for a long time. And also, he kind of deflects everything, kind of runs off his back because he deflects with humor when things start to get kind of uncomfortable. And so, I used to do that quite a bit. Still do, if I'm being honest.
Me
But,
too.
a lot
It's
less
a
now.
survival mechanism.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it is. Really is. But yeah, that's who I would have resonated with as well.
That's awesome. I really like that answer.
Thank you. So tell me, we have a lot of ground to cover today, but why don't you tell us a little bit about your journey and how you got to be where you are today?
Sure. Well, I was never good in school. I wasn't a good student. I struggled with dyslexia, and then later on, I found out I have an auditory processing quirk. Uh, and I always worked really hard. I grew up in a family. I was adopted, and I grew up in a family that was probably a dangerous environment. And I moved a lot. I remember moving, sometimes two, three, four times a year. We didn't usually move very far, but we moved often. And I think because of, not being good in school and kind of seeing things, the way things were around me, I knew that I was going to have to work hard. So that's something that I gravitated towards very, very fast. I got my first job when I was probably 6 years old. I was starting to do recycling cans and bottles. And then when I was maybe around 7 or 8 years old, I took over somebody's paper route. I was always trying to make money. And so when I got older, I got into, I worked for a lot of department stores, and I worked in what's called visual merchandising. Back in the day, it used to be called display, where we would, put together windows and dress mannequins and all that kind of stuff. And that eventually brought me to corporate America, where I started working for a lot of department stores. I grew up in Southern California, and every store that I worked for ended up getting bought out by Macy's. So eventually I was just working for Macy's all the time. Um, from that, I moved on to a lot of other kind of corporate jobs and experiences. I always worked with the creative teams, and it was it was an interesting career, but at some point it really did feel very empty. At the same time, I was also um, deep in my alcoholism, my addictions. And so it took me until I was about 40 years old before I started to kind of think about making changes. Um, so my last big job that I had, I was working for Carter's Children's Wear, or Carter's Inc. now. They're the largest children's apparel company in the world. They have super deep pockets. It was a really awesome job, and I loved what I did until I didn't. And I started my first business, and my first business turned into a second, turned into a third. And now I'm running Super Purposes, where we help people really find the career that they deserve, but a career that has meaning and mission. I think a lot of people go into jobs and they're kind of like, I work hard so I can play hard. We hear that a lot. And it kind of hurts my heart when I think of that, because I think when you figure out what you're really supposed to be doing, what you're gifted at, what kind of excites you, what maybe, when the alarm clock goes off, you're not like throwing the covers over your head and hiding. You're actually excited to get out of bed and go and do what you're supposed to be doing. When you find that, work then becomes a part of your big life. And so we help people understand that thinking, and we help empower them to make more decisions for themselves, uh, to be more purpose filled, and to be more purposeful about where they work, the kind of people that they're working with, the sort of work that they're doing. It doesn't mean that it's a laugh riot 24/7. It's not. Very often it's filled with heartache. Sometimes it's bittersweet. Sometimes it's filled with challenge. But there's a part of it that when people get ignited, it can turn into their magnificent obsession. And I've just been really fortunate to have had this happen in the second half of my life. I got sober 10, almost 11 years. It's going to be 11 years in February. I just did the math. So I'm right on that cusp of one more year. And my life has completely changed since I was working for corporate America and now what I do. So it's been an interesting ride.
Yeah, it certainly sounds like it was an interesting ride, and thank you so much for sharing that. First of all, congratulations on the 11 years there. That's quite an accomplishment,
Thank you.
and you've had a lot of ups and downs, but you've also kept going. What do you think was maybe the biggest challenge you had to overcome through all that?
You know, I think we all, I mean, you're the procrastination coach. So I'm sure that you hear every reason that stops people from doing things. I think sometimes there's fear. Sometimes it's uncertainty for me. Sometimes it's the unknown, but now I have the formula how to always get over my procrastination or my moment of um, uncertainty. I think uncertainty is one of the things, and right now we're living in really uncertain times. And so I think a lot of people in the world are kind of like, well, what do I do next? Well, what if this happens? The what ifs and the what could be's. So now I have a tactic that I use. I employ this all the time in my life. When I have an idea and I think it's a good idea, I will take it to my team. I always take it to people who love my ideas. So I always go to the group of people who will generally encourage me. There will always be a couple in the team that will bring up the cons, right? They won't all be like, "Oh, you're wonderful and it's fabulous." So they'll bring up the opposition, which I appreciate that. But in general, I speak to the people who are like, let's do this. And when I say it, now it puts me in the position of the integrity step. And that's, do I do what I say I'm going to do or do I not? And sometimes I can change my mind. Sure. Anyone can say, yeah, I've really thought about it more and I've decided I'm not going to do it. And that's fine too. But in general, when I speak it, it's going to happen. That happened most recently when COVID first happened, every company was devastated. Everybody was like, oh my gosh, what are we going to do? Do we close our doors? I'm worried about my job. People are getting laid off. I mean, it was just absolute havoc. And I said to my team, I think we need to run into the fire. And what I mean by that is there's all these people who do not know how to work remotely. Remote work was new for pretty much everyone in 2020. Now, I've been working remotely for almost 20 years. So for me and for our company, it's, working remotely is something that we just do. So I said, why don't we put out a casting call across North America and let's just find 5 people, different walks of life, and let's take them through our online course of how to get a remote job that you absolutely love and that, has purpose and meaning. Let's film it. We'll film everything remotely. We'll do everything through, Zoom or Skype or whatever. And we'll just create a docuseries. And the team was like, and it wasn't just my idea because people kept adding their ideas, right? So it was the whole team's ideas and everybody got really excited about it. And so we started putting it together. I had never done a docuseries before. I mean, I've done some short videos. I, worked for a little bit for MTV. So, I've got a little bit of that media background, but I had never done a docuseries before. And so we put it together. Our team did everything. It was all self-funded. And we've won 3 gold awards for our docuseries. Just between last year and this year, we've won a total of 3 gold awards. And that was really exciting for us, where we follow these 5 people and we take them through, how to get that job. And anyway, it was a lot of fun, but, I don't let the not knowing stop me. So
No, I really like that. I mean, it creates accountability because now you've spoken it, and it goes on to that theory of speaking it into existence, right?
yes.
So I really like that. I really like that story, and honestly, I think that the work you do is really inspiring, just because we are so used to, like you said, you work hard to play hard, or even when I was growing up and we were talking about what do you want to do when you grow up, it didn't become a question of what you want to do. It became a question of, okay, what's going to pay me the most, and then it slowly turned into, well, no one works a job they love, so this is just the way.
Yeah, that is so true. I mean, if we look at most of our role models or maybe the people who were closest to us in our ring of influence, like our parents, my parents didn't love their jobs. My parents were, just trying to get the bills paid. They were doing the best that they could. My dad was definitely a hustler. He had multiple jobs all the time. I kind of have to laugh today because I'm kind of the same way. I'm still like, even though super purposes, that's a business, but I still do speaking engagements, I still do workshops, I still do side hustles. Um, yeah, it's interesting, but I think when you have a real connection with your work, you will attract the same like-minded people. I think of my team and how much I have in common with them, even though we are just as different as can be, but we have the most baseline values, connections. And I work with a lot of people when I think of, sometimes I'll take a group of people like the LGBTQIA community. So many of the people who I get to work with from that community, they will have fears around safety. They will have examples of when they've been discriminated against. They will have, stories that they will tell me about where coworkers, have just been horrible to them. And they're trying to find their people. And so it's actually quite easy when you know the formula. But the thing that I keep saying to these people is, don't just go online and fill out another online application, because you're kind of just putting out there for, well, whatever is out there, let me just, take whatever comes my way. And instead, they should have intention. They should know where they want to work, what kind of people they want to work with, what are the values of the company. Because when you align what you believe in with where you work and what they're doing, then you're going to have that heart soul connection. And I think when people don't have that alignment, they do dive into depression. They do dive into procrastination. They do become the person who, doesn't want to get out of bed in the morning, or they start drinking or drugging or whatever the addiction might be. They start going into bad health and mental health behaviors because you're not with the people that you're supposed to be with. You're kind of forcing, maybe you're a square peg trying to get into a round hole, or, vice versa. So, I love that you brought that up, that there are so many people that that we've looked up to who haven't figured it out, but we're figuring it out. I think you've figured it out, right? Don't you feel super connected to your work?
I do, but and I don't shy away from this. Anybody who knows and have seen my other podcast episodes and the other episodes I've done, they know that I had to have my life pretty much implode before I decided to make a change. So, it's a very common.
Sometimes the implosion, I think we were talking earlier and you had said something about the failures, can lead us to, I know I'm totally paraphrasing, but can lead us to the greatness, it can lead us to the next big thing. Yeah, but people have a real struggle trying to find where they're supposed to be. And notably, people will spend more time on their resume, which by the way is a total dinosaur. People who are spending time on their resumes are really spending time probably not on the best thing. They should be really thinking about, what company do I want to work for? What industry really makes me excited? What sort of people do I want to work with? Do I want to, share a meal with, that I want to hang out with? Because we spend so many hours at work. And to have all of those considerations and that figured out is so much more important than the piece of paper that, by the way, never gets seen by a human being unless you're sitting in front of them during an interview. That's the only time that somebody really looks at a resume.
I would actually challenge that because I remember being in job interviews where they didn't read the resume.
Well, that's true
Actually,
too, right?
I
Yeah.
wanted to ask you a question, actually, your point of view on this. I actually recently interviewed another individual who, lovely Marshall, and she runs this Lovely as Your Story, and I loved her story just because she didn't use a resume, and she actually got a job at Facebook just by telling, just by telling her story. So I'm just curious, I don't put too much stock in my resume either, but do we have to have something, or do we just try to get in front of who we need to speak to and just tell our story?
This is such a great question you're asking. To me, a resume is only used when somebody asks for it. But again, they never look at it, or highly unlikely that they look at it. It'll be used maybe for sorry, I got a cat eating a plant. Hey, thank you, meow meow. They will use the resume when you put in an application, but that goes through an applicant tracking system. So it just goes through software. And again, a human being doesn't look at it. The thing that I recommend for people to use is LinkedIn. LinkedIn is like a billboard on a highway. Every person that's driving by is going to see it. The more people you're connected to on LinkedIn, the more traffic, the more drive-bys you're having. So if you can have a strong LinkedIn and then you identify where you want to work, so you figure that out, you figure out, okay, here are maybe the 3 or 5 or 7 or 9 companies I would like to work for. You start establishing relationships online. You turn those contacts and connections into actual meetings, and you turn those meetings into interviews. I know that it sounds implausible to some people, and to other people it sounds impossible. But we've helped 17,000 people do exactly that, getting the job where they want to work. And it's, we do it all the time. And even when I show our team, I give them some examples. They're just like, really? We did? It's like, yeah, we had, we had a woman who she was a military spouse. She had been out of work for 5 years. She was I want to say she was in like computer programming. So you would think, oh, she should have a million jobs, but she just could not seem to get a job. She was having some packaging problems about herself. We worked with her, and on day 21, she got her first job offer. On day 28, she got her second job offer. She didn't need a lot of work. She just needed a few little tweaks. And once when she had those, she was like, oh my gosh, I've been out of work for 7 years or for 5 years. And you helped me get a job in 3 weeks, 4 weeks. So sometimes we have to look outside of ourselves, and we have to look to an expert and say, what am I doing wrong? I think about myself when I go to the gym. I'm not, first of all, let me just say, I'm not great at going to the gym. I'm better if there is a personal trainer there waiting for me. I need somebody there who cares about me, who can correct me, who can give me some hot tips, shortcuts, maybe a little inspirational talk. Maybe they can, I don't know, give me some best practices. But that person will elevate my workouts so much more than when I try to do it by myself. And you probably find the same thing with your coaching clients, because you're coming in from a perspective that the clients who are coming to you don't have the answers, but you do, and you're able to help them with that.
It's a little bit different to that. Everybody really knows the answers for themselves. They just can't see it. It's kind of like when you're driving in a car, you know how you look in the mirrors and you have blind spots?
Yeah.
So when, you have another car come up, they can say, "Oh, you got, your taillights out," or, something that you're not seeing, right? That's really what it is. I mean, everybody at their core really knows what they should be doing and, what aligns with their values. It's just that not everybody does it, again, because we're chasing ideals that we were told were right. not necessarily that we're right.
Love your analogy. It is so good. It's really understandable for someone to maybe know in their heart what is right. But again, the blind spots, the tail lights out. Yeah, that's really awesome. I'm going to take that one.
Feel free. I don't even think honestly, I don't even think it's mine. I just don't know where I heard it. But it's true though. I mean, it's much easier. There's lots of analogies, right? I like the car one. There's forest for the trees. There's on Instagram they had another one that was, and I was upset because I thought I had this one too, but apparently somebody else thought of it first. I'm not even on Instagram, but they said that we sent someone 250,000 kilometers to the moon, right? And yet we can't go 63 kilometers down to figure out what's in the bottom of the ocean.
That is very, very odd.
That's just because of the pressure, and it's uncomfortable, or
Sure.
or we don't know what we don't know.
Right.
That's
And we probably, there seems to be so much more interest in space exploration than there is in our own planet. Sad to say.
well, that's just short-sightedness, and I mean it's not. I don't think it's necessarily our fault. It's just that we feel that there's more possibilities in a bigger playground, right?
Yeah.
Bigger sand.
Yep.
You were mentioning too that you helped this, and that's an amazing story, by the way. You helped this woman get a job in 17 days. What what did that process kind of look like?
We have an online course. We're actually launching our new online course. I think we're launching it in December, January of next year. But basically, our process is over 12 weeks. And for some people, they might think 12 weeks, that's like 3 months. That's a long time to be looking for a job. For some people, they won't spend hardly any time on the most basic stuff, but for other people, they will need every single step that we give them. So we usually start off first with LinkedIn. We usually start off first with, how are you presenting yourself? How are you packaging yourself? What is your story? When, you were talking about lovely Marshall who got the job. You said, I think it was Microsoft?
Facebook, actually.
Facebook. So she got the job at Facebook just by telling her story. That is so key to the job. Because when people hear your story, they will either resonate with it or they won't. And then when you're going through the interview, so, the process is, okay, telling your story, attracting people to you, attracting recruiters to you. Then the next section that we teach is really about values, understanding your values, really kind of going deep into the values, looking for the sort of companies that align with you, and then starting to reach out to those people who work for those companies. Then we move into the interviewing, negotiating, job offer, all of that. That happens at the the last 4 weeks. So for this particular client, she didn't need help with LinkedIn other than she had this 5-year gap. So we were able to solve the 5-year gap. We were able to put in, because she was doing a lot of work for friends and families, for her school district. She was doing a lot of computer stuff for a lot of different people. She wasn't charging anybody anything, but she was fresh. She was doing the work. She just wasn't getting compensated for it. So we packaged that as a freelance business, and that freshened up her resume or her LinkedIn profile to show that she had some fresh work that she was doing. And that helped to close the gap, because people would pass on her because they're like, well, you haven't worked in 5 years. But the reality was, she was just not at a traditional job and just not getting paid. She had the experience. So that was one thing that she just tweaked. We had to do a little work on the sort of company that she wanted to work for and the values. People always have a tendency to choose the top 10 values, which are family, a sense of belonging, community, financial security, religion. There's 10 things, and pretty much everybody in the world gravitates towards those 10 things. It doesn't matter if you're in Costa Rica or if you're in, I don't know, Afghanistan. People want those 10 things. It's the other 46, 47, 48 things, values that we've identified that are kind of the oddballs. They're kind of unique and special. And when people can target those, then it cuts out all of the noise. Because if you have a very specific, I'm going to tell you what my number one value is. My number one value, it's so weird whenever I say this because I gravitate more towards my number 3 value, which is humor. But my number one value is freedom. I want the freedom to work whenever I want to. I want the freedom to decide where I work, what kind of work I do, who I get to work with. I want to have the choices. So freedom to me in my job and in the work I do is so critical. If I had to go into an office, if I was forced into an office, that would not be the job for me. Now, I'm happy to go into an office once in a while because I do like to meet people and I do like to, press the flesh, and I do like to drink coffee with my friends and kind of chitter chatter. I do enjoy that. So what fulfills me is some of the consulting work that I do. So I get to go into an office here and there. I also have the freedom to work from home. Like right now, I have slippers on my feet. So in these other values, when people can kind of target into that, then they start to realize, okay, I need to find a company that aligns with that. Because if the company doesn't align with what I care about, then you're going to have that mismatch, and that's where problems begin. So she needed a little time on that. She needed a little time on interviewing. She was one of those people who does the interview. So the interviewer asks the question, she would answer, and then she would wait. The interviewer asked the question, she would answer, and then she would wait. The interviewer asked the next question, she would answer, and she would wait for the next question. And so what happens is you get really, really, really far away from your interviewer. And meanwhile, you should have a dialogue like what you and I are doing, Chris. We're doing it back and forth. You'll share a little something. You'll ask me a question. I'll share something. I'll ask you a question. Having the conversation flow makes it like, okay, well, we could work together. We could be colleagues. We could hang out together. Maybe you might want to be on my pickleball team. I don't know. And so that's what you want to create during the interview. And that's what she needed to learn. And once she learned how to do that, she aced all of her interviews. She got her job offers. And the thing that she learned, I think the most, was what she got, she can use for the rest of her life. It wasn't like a one and done, this is never going to work again. She learned the basic tenets of developing a relationship in like 5, 10, 15 minutes. Yeah.
I really love that you say that it's building relationships, because it really is. Because you might laugh at this, but I've had this conversation quite a bit. I was actually speaking to someone who said they didn't understand relationships. They could understand business, but not relationships. And I said, well, a business is just a relationship, because when we were running naked and scared through the forest with nothing around, we had social constructs only. It was only later when, we put clothes on, we got into the street, we started using cars, buildings, we got civilized,
Yeah.
that we put those social constructs into formal structures. So
Yes.
I love that you treat it like a relationship.
Yeah, that is so funny. Um, I definitely get your humor vibe that you throw out. I can tell why you're so likable because you've got a really kind of fun, glib way about you. I know, again, more survival mechanisms from us, I think. But I love the naked and afraid. You know, that kind of says it all.
Oh, well, we're all still afraid. We're just not naked anymore.
Very true. Very true. I love that show, by the way. I don't know. Have you seen Naked and Afraid?
Actually, I've heard of it. I haven't seen it. The the, the the movie that comes to mind though is Marlon Wayans Naked, where he relives. It's kind of a Groundhog Day scenario,
Okay.
but he relives his day, but he's got no clothes on, so he keeps trying to figure out a way to.
My gosh, I am so naked shy. That would be like the torture test for me. Yeah. Okay, I'm gonna have to check it out.
Yeah. No, it wasn't a great movie, but it's good for 5 minutes of entertainment.
Okay.
Um,
Great.
so just going back to values a little bit,
Yes.
my own value, my own primary value is authenticity, and that can be pretty hard to find a place that allows you to be authentic. I only know, like personally here locally where I'm located right now in St. Catharines, Ontario, I only really know of two companies that allow you to do that, and one of them is a cannabis dispensary, and another one is it's actually Hot Topic, where they kind of encourage you to be yourself in the store, which I really like. But in your opinion, what might be the most difficult of those values, would you say, to find placement?
Huh. I'd have to look at the list. This is such a great, I've never been asked this question before. I'd have to look at the list to identify. You were bringing up something though for me when I think about authenticity. So we work a lot with people who are neuro spicy, right? The whole neurodivergent folks who are starting to come out of the woodwork. They've always been there, but now they're starting to be more prevalent. We're seeing more TikToks from people who have been masking most of their lives. They've been told by their families, oh, you need to smile more, you need to hug more, you need to do all these things. You have to mask all the stuff that really is not innately what you want to do or feel comfortable with. And I think because that group of people has grown and we're more aware of that, those folks have a real challenge finding a company that will accept them for who they are. Now, where I like to place those people is generally in technology and the Fortune 500. For some reason, Fortune 500 companies seem to be so much more dialed into diversity. And no, we've got all the people who are like anti DEI, and people who are, yes, it's a good thing. I personally think it's a good thing because my belief and my experience has been the more diverse your team is, the more problems you're going to be able to solve. The more uniqueness that you can bring to what it is that you do. I think the user experience becomes even better because people will see what you had said earlier, your blind spots. So I'm very positive about bringing all kinds of people into, our company. I think technology companies are also, very accepting of that. When you go to maybe like Google, Microsoft, Amazon, Meta, like all of those, they are just rampant with people from all kinds of backgrounds, all kinds of authentic challenges and assets. So that's where I would direct those people. And it's not to say that you have to be at a super huge company because those companies all started off as small. Google started off as two guys. So you can find that fundamental thinking, but you have to look for perhaps more progressive companies. And again, that's another word that people will either gravitate towards or they'll shy away from, and they'll think, oh, progressive, that's terrible. Everything should be traditional and conservative and whatever. If that's what you gravitate towards, if that's some of your values, then that's where you should go. And if you are, want to be your authentic self, you're probably going to want to go into the progressive side of things. Did I answer your question?
Yep, you did.
Okay. So,
It's
sometimes I go
really
on a tear.
it's all right. No, you did answer the question. Thank you.
Okay.
It was so one of the things that just came to mind right now as well is that now that you mention it, a lot of CEOs are actually coming out as having ADHD. So, I would say that, they should be more accepting because and I mean these CEOs rose to power, and it's totally it's kind of mind-boggling, the double standard, right? Because these CEOs came up, and maybe some of them even came up, retired, put the next guy in charge, and they themselves had ADHD, and yet they say that they aren't really accepting of the divergent community, which is it's mind-boggling.
It's hypocritical when that happens. We can see that people fall into having been oppressed, that they will fall into more oppressive constructs. We see it with, America right now. We're so divided in our politics. And so I think for individuals, when you know who you are, when you are confident and comfortable with yourself, and you start sharing that with others, and you start surrounding yourself with people who applaud you, who are like, yeah, they're excited that you are the weirdo of the group, that you are, whatever it is, then that again, that's the place where you need to go. You need to go and be with your people that are supportive of that. But sure, we do see people hiding it, and a lot of people hide it because had they not hid it, they wouldn't have had the opportunities that they got. I know for myself, having dyslexia, I've heard a lot of people say, "Oh, there's a lot of CEOs who have dyslexia," and I've gone and discovered and to see that, yeah, that's true, and I see why. Because for me, just getting through the day as a kid, I had to do so much work of process. I had to figure out step one, do this, step two, do that. I had to have my lists. I had to develop relationships with the smarter kids in the class. I got really tricky at copying people. So I was really good at, kind of like, getting the answers from other people. I was really good at delegating my homework. So I understand that people with dyslexia will sometimes be in leadership because they've had to figure out those other skills to get through the day. So for me, what started off as my worst liability has become probably my greatest asset. Yeah.
And I love how you say that. And that there was a saying too. I'm probably gonna mess it up a lot, but if you judge a goldfish on its ability to climb a tree, it's never gonna be up to standard. But you throw it in a pond.
That's a good one. It's true. I think we have to recognize that the person who is different from you is going to bring things that you do not have. Like, what do you think are what are like maybe your top 1, 2, 3 assets?
Assets in terms
As
of
far as like, what are you really good at?
oh, I'm really good at people. Like I read people really well.
Yep.
I developed that, so I like to consider that. Um, also, since I was a very anxious kid, I very good at problem solving and mitigating risks and doing risk analysis. Yeah, I mean, I was always, I was doing what if scenarios in my head all day long. And it was definitely horrible, but at the same time, it gave me that ability to see everything that could potentially happen. I mean, I've had to tone it down a bit, obviously, but it gave me that ability to do that. And I'm trying to think of the third thing. Third thing is I'm stubborn. I like I'm and I've had to let that go a lot too.
Yeah.
But whenever I've had an issue and I've wanted to solve it and I couldn't solve it right away, I'd be the one sitting there and everybody always said, "You're so calm, you're so calm." And in the middle of it, I'm sitting there thinking, "Okay, okay, you SOB, you're gonna do what I want you to do now. You're gonna work right now. I'm not leaving
Hey,
until you work now."
to me, when you share about your second quality, the quality of the risk assessment, that the being anxious previously, that to me, I think I want this person on my team because that's not my natural state of being. My natural state of being is not looking at the risk like, okay, well, what will we possibly lose? I need somebody like you to say, this could happen, that could happen, da 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 da. And that's what I mean. If we can surround ourselves by people who are who they really are, appreciate them for their gifts, have the goldfish in the pond, not in the tree. It makes for a happier place. It honors everybody. Everyone has more skin in the game. Your company will be a stronger company. You will feel like you're a viable part of the team. I mean, it just ends up being, you know, beneficial all around. I want to
Oh,
ask about, I want to ask, what is your hottest procrastination tip? If I have a hard time getting started on something, what would you tell me to do? Because right now I'm working on something. I've talked about it to the people that love my ideas. They've all said yes, but it's been a week and I have not started yet. So what
hmm.
advice would you give me?
Right. So there is no real silver bullet. There that I wish there was,
Yeah.
but one of the first places to start is to look at that thing that you want to do. And it's not necessarily the thing that you're putting off. It's not the entire thing. It's one specific part of it. So I have a very real example of myself. I mean, I got up and I get up in the morning. I try to I'm not a gym guy, but I try to get out and do a little bit of exercise in my garage. And so I got up, I'm just not feeling it. And I'm like, wait a second, let's dig through this. Okay, getting up at 5, no, I can do that. That's fine. And then doing the exercise, oh, that's fine too. Oh, the garage is a little cold. But if I fix that, now I can go up.
Ah, that's a good example. Yes. I am missing one thing. So now, thank you. You just helped me figure out what I need to do. I'm missing one thing from me getting started. Okay. Awesome. Well, you are the procrastination coach.
I am, well, I was and I am a master procrastinator. Again, I don't shy away from that. So that's why I got into it.
Well, I think it's hard to solve other people's challenges when you haven't experienced them yourself. So you got to kind of, have taken some of the poison, experience some of it. So then you can relate, have empathy, sympathy, and then how you've overcome that is, beneficial to others. Yeah.
Well, it's been an absolute pleasure, SJ. We are coming up on the time here. Is there anything that maybe you wish I'd asked but didn't ask, or anything that you feel we should have covered but we didn't cover today?
Think so. I've just really enjoyed our time together. And I actually think that, maybe there's some work that or collaborations that we can do in the future. So thank you for having me on your show. This has been great.
Oh, it's been absolutely wonderful having you, SJ. And so just before we go, what is the best way if people want to reach out and talk to you, they have questions, or maybe they want to take the course. Maybe, you know what? Maybe just for the heck of it, I want to take the course because LinkedIn has never been a strong suit of mine either. So how can people reach out or learn more?
So superpurposes.com. We are launching our newest online course in the next month or two, so December, January. But you can always connect with us and connect with us on LinkedIn. That's a great place too. I meet tons of people all day long. I'm always in meetings, meeting folks. So I'm happy to connect with folks there as well.
Okay, and as always, to our listeners, we will be putting that in the show notes, so don't worry about trying to pause and grab a pen and paper or anything like that. And just once again, thank you so much for being on the show, SJ.
Thank you.
And to all our listeners, once again, if you can't find that motivation or inspiration for yourself today, maybe just go out and try to be that motivation and inspiration for someone else. And we'll see you again next time.